Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Um, if at any point you can't hear me, let me know. And I can speak up a little bit. But it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, Chris. My name is Ainura Whitener. As Chris mentioned, my husband and I actually run a tech firm and consulting firm called Crimson Stark. We essentially build out partner strategy, we recruit the right partners, and then take them through everything all the way to activation. And both our tech does that, and then the consulting arms does something very similar. So today's topic is essentially most partnerships are performative. Some of you may be familiar with the concept, and today we're going to kind of unpack a little bit about how to make them a bit more profitable. And it's not about activity, it's essentially about accountability and finding a mutual ground where it benefits everyone. So most partnerships start out with good intentions. If any of you are familiar with partnerships, you are probably familiar with the excitement that comes along with it. You may have even had some negotiations, shook hands, maybe signed a contract or an agreement, but then nothing happened afterwards. And that's actually a very common, a common thing to see in partnerships. But it's essentially because either there's no alignment or perhaps there's no accountability or the alignment is not with the partner. Again, it's maybe actually internal. So I've got a quick question for you guys. How many of your partnerships have generated measurable revenue in the last 6 months? Is it A, most of them, B, some of them, C, very few, or D, none?
How many of you are in partnerships now? Anybody? Two? Three? What would you say? Well, hey.
Start for kind.
So we have one A.
Wonderful.
B and C.
That's rare.
One A, one B, and one B and C.
And a C.
Okay.
No, no,
Okay, so if you didn't say A, you're actually in the bucket with probably 90% of the organizations. But the real question there is, one, was anyone really accountable for that number, for the actual revenue, and in what capacity or in what way? So the real problem typically is that it's performative. A lot of times, again, it's misaligned, and sometimes the partnerships, when they get set up, they're economically irrelevant. So when there's no ownership or internal alignment, and when I say alignment, I mean the whole organization needs to be rowing in the same direction. So leadership needs to be bought in and supportive. The partner team needs to be clear on that path and again have that extra support. And then sales needs to be very, very well informed so they know when to bring in the partners or how to work with those partners. Um, Two, it's not understanding the partner motivation. So what a lot of times gets missed is really a thorough discovery. So there's been so many conversations that I've walked into where it's that point three almost where it goes into it and it's one-sided to where here's what our product does, here's what we do, here's what our organization does. Me. It's wonderful. It's awesome. We're fantastic. Go sell us. All right. So a lot of times the partner walks away not truly understanding why they should be bought into this concept. And even if they're excited about it, it doesn't always get trickled down throughout the rest of the organization to their sales teams, their customer success teams who are actually in front of the end customer. So a lot of times if the partnership doesn't solve at every step, the executive, the middle tier, and kind of the sales teams and the customer success teams, a lot of times things will get lost. So I've got another question for you guys. Do you know what actually drives your top partners to sell with you or to work with you? Is it clear? Is it B, somewhat, kind of? Is it C, not really? Or D, you've maybe never mapped it out or you didn't have to?
B and D.
who said
B and
D?
D, somewhat,
So we got
or not
one
mapped
B
it out?
and D. One's an A. A. Another an A. There's three A's and then a B and a D.
Fantastic. Okay, so this is quite often where things break down. So those of you who are doing it, fantastic. Those who maybe don't have a clear clear layouts, perhaps there's an opportunity here and we can chat through that. So profitable partnerships have to sit at this intersection of three things essentially. So one is that internal alignment. And that's, again, everyone needs to know exactly which direction you're rowing in and exactly what is going to drive the relationship. So sales needs to have incentive or motivation and know exactly when to engage the partner. Leadership has to track that revenue and has to be able to reinforce and again support and push the sales to be able to cooperate with those partners. And then there's clear ownership. Sometimes there's no clear ownership. Sometimes it's sales who runs partnerships. Sometimes it's the CEO who runs partnerships. And sometimes it's individual sales reps who are running their own partnerships, right? So a lot of times it gets a little muggy. Number two, this intersection is essentially the mutual economic value. And this is, again, one of those questions that I feel like gets missed quite often, but the partners don't know how you're contributing to their KPIs or goals, or vice versa. They may not know how they're contributing to your KPIs and goals because different teams have different priorities, right? Some of you may stay awake at night thinking about churn, and that's your number one priority. Others may be staying awake at night thinking about net new logos or sales, perhaps, and that's what keeps you up at night. But those conversations will differ with each role based on what their priorities may be. And again, that's partially what gets missed. And then finally, it's the behavior, right? So is there an incentive? Is there a spiff? Is there some sort of a margin or a rev share? And by the way, you always want to make it simple. One of the things that I found successful is essentially creating a very simple half pager or one pager that has 2 or 3 questions and 2 or 3 answers to listen for when they're talking to their customers without having to learn your organization, your product, your services in and out, because at the end of the day, what they're incentivized on is their own sales, right? Their own product. That's what they know best. So if you can make it very simple, very easy, 2, 3 questions and the 2, 3 answers to listen for, makes it super easy for them to identify. Oh, any questions on this before I move on? I've got one more question for you guys. No? Fantastic. All right. So what's missing the most in your current partnership? I'd be curious if you feel like any of these are applicable. So one, is it the internal alignment? Is it the clear partner incentive? Or do you feel like you have those, but perhaps there's no like go to market play with clear objective measurements? And then is there measurement and accountability, and are they tied to the overall sales goals or organizational goals? I have a feeling one of you's got to have at least an A.
Yeah, a mix of all of them.
So we're getting a mix of all of them here.
Okay, wonderful. So that's very typical just because different partnerships, different priorities, different organizations have different flows. So even in 2 different partnerships, you'll have kind of, they'll be in 2 different kind of stages or motions, and perhaps one thing is missing or another because you do have to pick up on the cues of your partners. So here's the framework essentially. The way to make those partnerships instead of performative actually profitable. And that's one, you have to have a focus. So who and really why. 2, you have to have the alignment, both internal within your organization and with the partner. 3 is really having that mutual value. Again, a lot of times we hear those conversations of me, 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 me. Here's why our product is wonderful. Sell us, bring us into your customers, but there's no return value to the partner. And if that's not clear, it gets lost. And then lastly, you have to actually activate with measurement. So if you can find one customer, right, one mutual customer, one mutual win, things tend to propel and move much quicker. So just one small win makes a world of a difference. Right. And then here's the design for mutual value typically. So the questions at the end of the day that you want to ask your partners, and all of these really happen or should happen in that first discovery stage. But how does each partner make you money today? what are their sales teams compensated on? How are they incentivized? Is it on your product? Is it on bringing in partners? Is it just their own sales? Are there spiffs? Right? All of those factors need to be included. And then finally, what keeps their leadership up at night? As I mentioned before, they have different priorities, right? Each of you likely has different things that they worry about on a day-to-day basis or lose sleep over. So having that information, you can then build out what the joint value proposition could look like. Clearly, what's in it for them. And then finally, the revenue pathway for both sides. So partnerships scale when they're selfish, but on both sides, right? In fact, think of it as dating, right? If you're very thoughtful of the other person in the relationship, quite often they want to continue the conversation. They want to go on another date. It's kind of a very similar concept here. All right. And then finally, activating and measuring, right? So being able to have 1 to 2 repeatable plays. And I say repeatable because you can't keep reinventing the wheels in order to go fast with partnerships. One partnership is great, but if you're looking to scale your business, you're going to have to be able to repeat that. So, and lastly, it's the kind of enablement piece for both sides. So again, keep the enablement very simple. 1 to 2 questions, just something simple to identify your mutual ideal customer profile, your ICP, and then set metrics in place. And those metrics should be something that you can measure after 30, 60, and 90 days. So when you re-engage with your partners and your counterparts there, you can say, hey, we were aiming for this many customers, right? This many new customers, or we were aiming for this additional tech piece to be completed, right? Perhaps it's a product, a capability that you're building out together. Or perhaps there's in 90 days, you can have some sort of a webinar or a customer facing event or something that essentially kind of amplifies the partnership or the relationship. So have measurable goals, otherwise it becomes stagnant. By the show of hands, those of you who have done partnerships or are engaged in it, have you ever had a call where you kind of get on, or a meeting where you meet and you say, you're kind of expecting something, where you say, okay, what do you have for me? Or they say to you, all right, what do you have for me? And there's no like clear objective that had to get accomplished by that point in time. Show of hands, anyone?
Most of the time, I think.
Most of the time
Yeah.
like that?
Okay. Again, you're not alone. Having something measurable to aim for makes that next meeting that much more meaningful. So here's a very simple, profitable partnership checklist. It's your organization has to be aligned. Your partner has to be economically motivated somehow. And both sides have to know exactly how they went together. It can't just look good on paper and look good on an announcement. It has to make sense to both. So instead of asking who should we partner with, a better question is, why would this partner choose to sell with us over everything else that they could be selling and everyone else they could be working with? All right. And then finally, Chris, you might like this one because I feel like I hear that quite often from Sean, and maybe from the days that you guys were in Italy together. But ask your team why. I feel like if you ask enough whys, you get to the real answer. So why aren't our partners actually bringing us into deals? Why don't our partners know when or how to position this? Why isn't our sales team engaging partners early in the cycle? Or why do we measure partner activity instead of actual partner revenue and what they're bringing to us? But any why you can come up with, ask enough whys, you'll get to the right answer. And then just who owns that, right? So who's actually running this? Who's going to make sure that the teams are aligned, that the sales teams know exactly who the partner is and how to work with them? Who's going to audit some of those metrics and kind of hold to that standard? And then, if necessary, redesign that model. And that's it, actually.